Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship and looked at the dead planet below. The world had no name, just a number, Kepler 4 for to be. It was a cold, empty place with no life. But the sensors showed something interesting under the ground, something old and made by intelligent beings. "Take us down, Ben," Jake said to his pilot. Lieutenant Ben Hayes was a good man and an even better pilot. He could land their ship anywhere, even on a world like this one. Dr. Lisa Carter checked her equipment one more time. She was the best scientist Jake had ever worked with. If anyone could figure out what was down there, it would be her. "The readings are strange," she said. "Whatever is down there, it's really old, maybe thousands of years." The ship landed with a soft bump. Jake put on his suit and helmet. The air outside would kill them in seconds. "Amy, you stay with the ship," he told Commander Amy Rodriguez. "Keep the engines warm. If something goes wrong, we might need to leave fast." Amy nodded. She was tough and smart. Jake trusted her to keep them safe. The team walked across the frozen ground. Their boots made no sound in the thin air. The planet was quiet like a grave. After an hour of walking, they found what the sensors had detected, a building made of black stone, stuck up from the ice. It was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. "Look at this," Lisa said. She ran her gloved hand over the stone. Strange symbols glowed where she touched them. "The material is not from this world. It's something I've never seen before." Ben kept watch while Jake and Lisa studied the building. There was a door, but it was sealed shut. Lisa took out her tools and started working on the symbols. After a few minutes, the door opened with a deep sound that they felt in their bones. Inside the building was warm. The air was good to breathe, which was impossible. The place had been dead for thousands of years, but somehow it still worked. Lights came on as they walked down long halls. The walls were covered with more symbols and pictures of strange creatures. "Jake," Lisa called from up ahead. "You need to see this." She stood in front of a huge room filled with machines. They hummed with power and showed images in the air. The images were of different worlds and different kinds of life. Jake saw creatures that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of rock, and some that looked almost like plants. But then Lisa found something that made her step back in shock. "This can't be right," she whispered. On one of the machines was a perfect image of a human being. Not just any human, but a detailed picture showing every part of the body, inside and out. Next to it were numbers and symbols that Lisa recognized as genetic code. "What does it mean?" Jake asked. Lisa's hands shook as she worked with the machine. More images appeared. Humans fighting with weapons, humans in spacesuits on different worlds, humans working together in perfect teams. But these were not pictures of real people. They were plans, designs, like someone was drawing blueprints for a new kind of machine. "Jake," Lisa said in a quiet voice, "I think this shows how to make humans. Not born humans, made humans." Ben moved closer. "That's crazy. Humans evolved on Earth. Everyone knows that." Lisa kept working with the machine. More information appeared. She saw genetic codes that matched human DNA exactly. She saw plans for human bones, muscles, and brains. Everything was designed to make humans stronger, faster, and smarter than they should be. "Look at this," she said, pointing to one part of the display. "Human reflexes are 10 times faster than they should be for an animal our size. Our brains can solve problems that much larger animals cannot. We can live in places that should kill us. We adapt to new environments faster than any other known species." Jake felt cold inside his suit. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that humans were not natural evolution. We were made, designed, built to be perfect soldiers." The machine showed more information. Lisa translated the symbols as best she could. The beings who built this place called themselves the architects. They had traveled across the galaxy, finding worlds and changing them. They made many different kinds of life, but humans were special. Humans were their greatest creation. Why? Ben asked. Why make us? Lisa found the answer in the machine's memory. Images appeared of a terrible war. The architects had fought against something dark and hungry, something that ate entire worlds. They needed soldiers who could fight anywhere, think fast, and never give up. So they made humans. But the war had ended long ago. The architects had disappeared. They left their creations to grow and spread across the galaxy on their own. For thousands of years, humans had lived without knowing the truth about themselves. Jake looked at the information and felt his world change. Everything humans believed about themselves was wrong. They were not children of Earth. They were weapons made by aliens. There's more, Lisa said. Her voice was scared now. Look at this part. New symbols appeared on the machine. Lisa worked to understand them. When she did, her face went white. Jake, there are control codes in human DNA, commands that can be activated from the outside. Someone with the right technology could control humans like robots. Ben laughed, but it was not a happy sound. You're saying someone could turn off human free will? Not turn off, reprogram, make humans do whatever the controller wants. Jake thought about what this meant. Every human in the galaxy carried hidden programming in their bodies. If someone found the right way to activate it, they could control all of humanity. We need to get this information back to Earth, Jake said. People need to know. As they prepared to leave, the machines suddenly changed. New images appeared, and an alarm started to sound. Lisa read the symbols quickly. Something is coming, she said. The machines detect ships in deep space. Big ships, really big. Jake looked at the display. It showed points of light moving toward human space. The lights were still far away, but they were getting closer. How long until they reach us? He asked. Lisa calculated quickly. Maybe 6 months, maybe less. Ben checked his weapon. Who are they? Lisa looked at the symbols one more time. Her face showed fear and understanding. I think they're the architects. They're coming back. Jake felt the weight of discovery on his shoulders. Humanity had lived free for thousands of years, not knowing. They were created beings. Now their makers were returning. The question was, what did the architects want with their greatest creation? As the team left the building and walked back to their ship, Jake looked up at the stars. Somewhere out there, ships were coming toward human space. Ships that carried the beings who had made humanity. Jake wondered if humans would still be free when those ships arrived. The discovery on Kepler 442b would change everything. Humanity was about to learn the truth about themselves, and the truth was more terrible and wonderful than anyone had ever imagined. President Dan Cooper sat in his office and read the report for the 5th time. The words did not change. Humans were not natural. They were made by aliens called the architects. Worse, these aliens were coming back. How sure are we about this? He asked Dr. Alex Turner. Turner was the smartest scientist on Earth, and he had studied the data from Jake Morrison's team for 3 weeks. Very sure, Mr. President, Turner said. We found 12 more sites like the one on Kepler 44, to be all have the same information, all show the same genetic designs. There is no doubt, humans were created as weapons. General Kate Phillips stood by the window, looking out at the city below. What about the ships? Are they really coming here? Yes, Turner said. Our long-range sensors confirm it. 47 ships, each one bigger than our largest space station. They will reach the edge of human space in 4 months. Cooper felt tired. He had been president for 6 years, and he thought he had seen every kind of crisis. Wars, disasters, economic problems. But this was different. This challenged everything humans believed about themselves. What do our allies say? Cooper asked. The Zentari think we are lying, Phillips said. The Mokari are scared and want to stay out of it. The Helix Federation says they will help, but their ships are no match for architect technology. Cooper nodded. Humanity had made friends with several alien species over the past century, but none of them were very powerful, and none of them had technology that could fight the architects. Admiral Tom Garcia entered the room. His face was grim. "Mr. President, we have a problem. The architect ships just sent a message." "What kind of message?" Garcia activated a hologram. The image showed a tall, thin creature made of what looked like living crystal. It had 4 arms and no face, just a smooth surface where a head should be. When it spoke, the words came in perfect English. "Greetings, created ones. We are the architects, your makers and masters. You have grown beyond your parameters. You have developed independence, creativity, and emotional attachment. These are errors in your programming. You will return to your designed function. Compliance is not optional. You have 30 of your days to prepare for recalibration." The message ended. The room was quiet for a long moment. "Recalibration?" Cooper asked. Turner looked sick. "Based on the data we found, it means they want to reprogram us. Remove our free will. Turn us into perfect soldiers who follow orders without question." Phillips clenched her fists. "They want to make us into robots." Cooper stood and walked to the window. Below, millions of people went about their daily lives. They had families, dreams, hopes. They were free. In 30 days, the architects wanted to take all of that away. "What are our options?" Cooper asked. Garcia spread his hands. "Not good. We have 300 ships in the fleet. Our best weapons are nuclear missiles and plasma cannons. The architect ships are made of materials we cannot even identify. Their weapons destroyed an asteroid the size of Earth's moon just to show us their power. So we cannot fight them," Cooper said. "We can try," Phillips said. "Maybe we will lose, but we should not give up without a fight." Turner shook his head. "You do not understand. The architects do not see us as people. To them, we are tools, weapons they made to fight their wars. They think they own us." Over the next few weeks, the architects' ships came closer. They sent more messages, each one demanding that humanity prepare for recalibration. The ships would arrive at Earth and other human worlds. All humans would be processed. Their brains would be changed to remove independence and creativity. They would become perfect soldiers, following orders without question. The human government tried to negotiate. They sent messages asking for peaceful talks. The architects responded with cold facts. Humans had been designed for war against an enemy called the Devourers. The war was starting again. The architects needed their weapons to work properly. Cooper called a meeting of all human leaders. Representatives came from every colony world, every space station, every ship in the fleet. They met in the Great Assembly Hall on Earth. "We face a choice," Cooper told them. "Submit to the architects and lose our freedom, or fight and probably die." Captain Jake Morrison stood up. He had become famous for discovering the truth about humanity. "There is a third option," he said. "Dr. Carter found something else in the architect machines. Control codes in our DNA. What if we activate them ourselves?" Dr. Turner looked shocked. "That is incredibly dangerous. We do not know what those codes will do. They could kill everyone who tries it. But they might also give us the power to fight back," Morrison said. "The architects made us to be perfect soldiers. Maybe it is time we became what they designed us to be." The debate went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to surrender and hoped the architects would be merciful. Others wanted to fight with the weapons they had. A few supported Morrison's idea of activating the genetic codes. Finally, Cooper made the decision. "We will not surrender our freedom. We will try to activate the codes, but only with volunteers. Anyone who wants to undergo the process can choose to do so. No one will be forced." The first test happened on a space station far from Earth. 20 volunteers, all soldiers. agreed to have their genetic codes activated. Dr. Carter and her team had built machines based on architect technology. The process was painful and dangerous. Of the 20 volunteers, 5 died immediately. Their bodies could not handle the changes. 10 others survived, but were changed in ways no one expected. They became faster, stronger, and smarter. But they also became aggressive and had trouble controlling their emotions. The remaining 5 volunteers, including Major Sam Williams, adapted to the changes better. They kept their personalities, but gained incredible abilities. Williams could move so fast that cameras could barely track him. He could see in complete darkness and hear sounds from miles away. Most importantly, he could think about combat situations in ways that amazed even experienced generals. But the process had a cost. The enhanced soldiers felt constant pain. Their bodies were pushed beyond normal limits. They also developed a need for action and conflict. Sitting still became almost impossible for them. As the architect's ships got closer, more volunteers came forward. Some wanted to protect their families. Others wanted to show the architects that humans would not be slaves. Each group that underwent the process had better results, as doctors learned more about how to make it work. When the architect's ships finally arrived at Earth, humanity was ready to give them a surprise. The aliens expected to find helpless creatures waiting for recalibration. Instead, they found enhanced humans who were everything the architects had designed them to be, and more. The first architect ship landed near the capital city. The ship was beautiful and terrible, made of the same crystal material as its builders. It was so large that it blocked out the sun. Doors opened, and the architects came out. They were tall and graceful, moving like dancers. Their crystal bodies reflected light in strange ways. They had no weapons that humans could see, but their technology was so advanced that they did not need weapons as humans understood them. The lead architect spoke without opening a mouth. Its voice appeared directly in the minds of everyone nearby. "We have come to reclaim our property. Humans will submit to recalibration. Resistance will be corrected." Major Williams and his enhanced team stepped forward. They had been waiting for this moment. Williams looked up at the towering alien and smiled. "We are not your property anymore," he said. "We choose our own path now." The architect seemed confused. This was not in its programming. Created beings did not refuse their makers. "You will comply," it said. "Your genetic codes compel obedience." Williams felt the pull of the codes in his DNA. For a moment, he wanted to kneel and submit, but his enhanced will was stronger. "You made us too well," he said. "We evolved beyond your control." The battle that followed was brief but intense. The architects had not expected resistance. Their technology was powerful, but they had not fought a real war in thousands of years. The enhanced humans moved like lightning, using tactics the architects had never seen. When the dust settled, the architect's ship was damaged, and several of the aliens were dead. But many humans had died too, including some of the enhanced soldiers. Williams survived, but he was badly hurt. The architect leader looked at the destruction and felt something it had not experienced in millennia. Surprise. "Impossible," it said. "You are created beings. You cannot harm your makers." Williams struggled to stand. Blood ran down his face, but his eyes were clear. "We are not just your creations anymore," he said. "We are human, and humans do not surrender." The architect ships pulled back to consider this new situation. They had expected easy compliance. Instead, they found weapons that had become something more than weapons. The architects would need a new plan as the aliens retreated. Cooper stood among the ruins of the battle and wondered what would happen next. Humanity had proven they could fight their creators, but the war was just beginning, and somewhere in deep space, an even greater threat was stirring. The Devourers, the ancient enemy the architects feared, were beginning to wake up. Major Sam Williams woke up in the medical center with pain shooting through every part of his body. The battle with the architects had been 3 days ago, but he still felt like he had been hit by a truck. Dr. Maya Johnson checked his vital signs and shook her head. "Your body is burning itself up," she told him. "The enhancement process is pushing your cells beyond their normal limits. Without treatment, enhanced humans live maybe 5 years. Williams sat up slowly. Outside the window, he could see the crater where the architect's ship had landed. Construction crews were already working to repair the damage. 5 years is enough, if we can save humanity, he said. Johnson frowned. There has to be a better way. We are learning more about the genetic codes every day. Maybe we can make the enhancement process safer. Maybe, Williams said. But we do not have time for maybe. The architects will be back, and next time they will be ready for us. Captain Rick Davis walked into the room. He was the pilot of the new ship, called Defiance, built using technology copied from the architect ruins. "Sam, we need you," he said. "The aliens are building something in space. Something big." Williams got out of bed and put on his uniform. Every movement hurt, but he ignored the pain. Enhanced soldiers learned to live with pain. It was part of what made them effective. On the bridge of Defiance, Admiral Claire Scott showed Williams the latest intelligence reports. Scott was in charge of all enhanced forces now. She had undergone the enhancement process herself and understood what it cost. "Look at this," she said, pointing to a hologram of space near Jupiter. "The architects are constructing some kind of station. Our spies think it is a factory for making recalibration equipment." Williams studied the image. The architect station was huge, made of the same crystal material as their ships. Strange energy patterns flowed through it like lightning. "How long until it is finished?" 2 weeks, maybe less, Scott said. "Once it is operational, they can recalibrate humans from a distance. We would not be able to stop them." Davis checked his flight controls. "We need to destroy it before it comes online." "With what?" Scott asked. "We have tried every weapon we have. Nothing can penetrate architect shields." Williams felt something stir in his enhanced mind. New ideas and possibilities that had not been there before. The genetic codes were still changing him, still revealing new capabilities. What if we do not try to penetrate their shields? What if we turn their own technology against them? Dr. Johnson had been studying captured architect equipment for weeks. "Their technology is based on quantum resonance," she said. "Everything they build is connected on a subatomic level. If we could disrupt that connection, we could cause a cascade failure," Williams finished. "Their own power source would destroy them." Scott looked interested but worried. "That would require getting inside the station, a suicide mission." Williams smiled grimly. "Enhanced soldiers do not expect to live long anyway. The question is whether we can do enough damage before we die." Over the next week, humanity prepared for the most desperate mission in their history. Enhanced soldiers from across human space volunteered to join the attack. They called themselves the Last Stand Unit. Because they knew most of them would not return, Colonel Beth Ryan commanded the Marine units. She had lost her entire family when the architects bombed the colony world of New Hope. The enhancement process had made her faster and stronger, but it had also made her anger burn like a cold fire. "We go in hard and fast," she told her troops. "The station has defenses we have never seen before. Stick to your teams, watch each other's backs, and remember what we are fighting for." Captain Jake Morrison, the man who had discovered the truth about humanity, volunteered to lead one of the assault teams. He was not enhanced, but he knew architect technology better than almost anyone. "I started this," he told President Cooper. "I should help finish it." Cooper did not want to let him go. Morrison was too valuable to lose. But the captain had made up his mind. "Just bring our people home," Cooper said. The attack began at dawn on a Tuesday. Defiance and 12 other ships approached the architect station from different directions. The aliens detected them immediately and activated their defenses. The space around the station filled with energy beams and force fields. 3 human ships were destroyed in the first few minutes. But the enhanced soldiers had trained for this. They knew they could not win with conventional tactics. Williams led the first boarding party. His ship crashed through an architect's shield by using a tactic no normal human would have attempted. The ship was badly damaged, but it got through. Inside the station, the enhanced soldiers found a nightmare of crystal passages and strange geometries. The architects had built their station according to non-human logic. Corridors led in impossible directions, and rooms existed in spaces that should not have been there. But the enhanced humans adapted. Their improved minds could handle the alien architecture. They moved through the station like ghosts, finding weaknesses the architects had not expected. Morrison's team reached the central power core first. It was a sphere of pure energy, surrounded by control systems that hurt to look at. The quantum resonance generator was beautiful and terrible, pulsing, with power that could reshape matter at the atomic level. There, Morrison said, pointing to a cluster of crystal formations. Those are the resonance controllers. If we can overload them, the whole station should tear itself apart. Ryan's Marines held off the architect defenders while Morrison's team worked on the controls. The aliens fought like nothing humanity had ever seen. They did not use weapons in the traditional sense. Instead, they shaped reality around them, turning the air into solid barriers and making gravity flow in different directions. But enhanced humans could adapt to anything. Williams moved through impossible spaces, his enhanced reflexes letting him dodge attacks that bent the laws of physics. Ryan's Marines worked together with perfect coordination, each soldier knowing exactly what the others would do before they did it. The battle for the power core lasted 6 hours. Enhanced humans died, their bodies unable to keep up with the demands placed on them. But they kept fighting, driven by something the architects had not programmed into them, the will to be free. Finally, Morrison reached the main control system. His hands shook as he entered the commands Johnson had taught him. Around him, the station began to shake as the quantum resonance went out of control. "Everyone out," he shouted. "This whole place is going to explode." But Williams was already moving. His enhanced mind had calculated the timing. They had maybe 3 minutes before the station destroyed itself. Not enough time for everyone to escape. "Go," he told Morrison. "Get the others to the ships." Morrison grabbed Williams' arm. "I am not leaving you." Williams pushed him toward the exit. "Someone has to make sure the overload completes. Go." As the evacuation began, architect ships arrived to try to save their station. They poured fire into the human vessels, desperate to stop the cascade failure. But it was too late. The quantum resonance was spiraling out of control. Williams stayed at the power core, making sure the overload continued. Around him, the station began to tear itself apart. Crystal walls melted like ice. Energy storms raged through the corridors. The very fabric of space-time began to warp. He thought about his life before the enhancement. He had been a simple soldier, following orders and trying to stay alive. Now he was something more. Something the architects had made, but could not control. He was human, and that meant something the aliens would never understand. The explosion, when it came, could be seen from Earth. The architect station vanished in a burst of light that outshone the sun for several seconds. The quantum cascade destroyed not only the station, but several architect ships that were too close to escape. Of the 200 enhanced soldiers who had joined the attack, only 67 made it back to human space. Williams was not among them, but his sacrifice had bought humanity something precious: time. The architects pulled back their fleet to reconsider their strategy. They had underestimated their creations. Humans were supposed to be weapons, but they had become something else. Something that could think and adapt and choose to sacrifice themselves for others. In the medical centers across human space, the surviving enhanced soldiers recovered from their wounds. Their bodies were dying, consumed by the very modifications that made them powerful. But their spirits were strong. They had proven that humans were more than just weapons. Dr. Johnson continued her research, looking for ways to make the enhancement process safer. President Cooper worked with the other human leaders to prepare for the next battle. And in the ruins of their station, the architects began to realize that they faced an enemy unlike any they had encountered before. Humans were not just weapons anymore. They were something new, something that could grow beyond their original design. The architects had created the perfect soldiers, but in doing so, they had also created the perfect rebels. The war was far from over, but humanity had taken the first step toward true freedom. They had awakened to their full potential, and nothing would ever be the same. Admiral Claire Scott stood in the command center on Mars and watched the war map with tired eyes. Red dots showed architect forces. Blue dots showed human forces. There were far more red dots than blue ones. The war had been going on for 8 months, and humanity was losing. "How many enhanced soldiers do we have left?" she asked General Paul Young. Young checked his tablet. His face was grim. 412 across all of human space. "We started with over 3,000. Scott nodded. She had expected this. Enhanced soldiers were powerful, but they burned out fast. Their bodies could not handle the modifications for long. Most died in battle, or from the strain of their own abilities. "What about the regular forces?" "We have lost 60% of the fleet," Young said. "The architects adapt to our tactics faster than we can develop new ones. They learn from every battle." Scott walked to the window and looked out at the red sky of Mars. Below, refugees from a dozen worlds worked to build new homes. The architects had conquered or destroyed most of the outer colonies. Billions of humans were now homeless, or dead. Captain Nina Bell entered the room. She looked older than her 30 years. Leading the resistance on occupied Earth had aged her fast. "Admiral, we have a problem," she said. "What now?" Scott asked. "The architects are not just trying to recalibrate humans anymore," Bell said. "They are experimenting on us. My contacts on Earth report that they are taking people to laboratories. They come back different, obedient, empty." Young clenched his fists. "They are perfecting the recalibration process." Scott felt sick. The early architect attempts to reprogram humans had failed because human consciousness was more complex than expected. But the aliens were learning. Each experiment brought them closer to a way to turn humans into perfect slaves. "There is something else," Bell said. "We captured an architect scientist. He wants to talk." This was unusual. Architects rarely communicated beyond giving orders or demands. Scott was curious. "Bring him in." The prisoner was brought in under heavy guard. Dr. Pete Morgan was not like other architects. His crystal body was smaller and had a different color. When he spoke, his voice carried emotion, which was rare for his species. "I am not your enemy," he said. "I have studied humans for many years. You are more than we thought you would be." Scott remained suspicious. "What do you want?" "To help you understand the truth," Morgan said. "The architects are dying. Our species has not been able to reproduce for thousands of years. We are the last generation." Young leaned forward. "So why do you need us?" "Because the Devourers are returning," Morgan said. "They were our great enemy long ago. We created you and other warrior species to fight them. But the Devourers were only sleeping, not dead. They are waking up." Scott had heard of the Devourers from the ancient records, but she thought they were myths. "What are they exactly?" Morgan's crystal body dimmed with fear. "They are what we might become if we are not careful. Long ago, they were individual beings, like us. But they chose to merge their minds into one collective consciousness. They gave up their individuality for power. Now they consume entire galaxies, turning everything into more of themselves. And you think they are coming back? I know they are, Morgan said. Our deep space sensors detect their ships at the edge of the galaxy. They move slowly, but they are vast beyond imagination. When they arrive, they will try to absorb all life into their collective. Young shook his head. Even if that is true, why should we trust you? Your people are trying to enslave us. Morgan's voice became sad. Because most architects do not understand what humans have become. They see you as broken tools that need to be fixed. They do not realize that your independence is exactly what we need to fight the Devourers. Scott thought about this. What do you mean? The Devourers can absorb minds that think in predictable patterns. Morgan explained. Programmed. Soldiers would be easy for them to convert. But humans who think for themselves, who can adapt and change, might be able to resist them. Belle crossed her arms. So you want us to fight your war for you? I want us to fight our war together, Morgan said. If the Devourers win, all individual consciousness in the galaxy will end. Humans, architects, everyone will become part of their collective mind. Scott considered this information. If Morgan was telling the truth, then humanity faced a choice between two kinds of slavery. They could submit to the architects and become programmed soldiers, or they could face the Devourers and risk being absorbed into a collective mind. How do we know you are not lying? She asked. Morgan gestured, and a hologram appeared in the air. It showed the edge of the galaxy, where space was usually empty and dark, but now there were structures there. Massive things that dwarfed even architects' ships. They moved like living creatures, reaching out with tentacles of energy. This data came from our most distant sensors, Morgan said. The Devourers will reach the outer star systems in 2 years, maybe less. Young studied the hologram. How do we fight something that big? Together, Morgan said. Architects have the technology. Humans have the adaptability and willpower. Apart, we will both be destroyed. Together, we might have a chance. Scott made a decision that would change the course of the war. I will take your proposal to the human leadership. But first, you have to prove your good faith. Help us save the humans in the architect laboratories. Morgan agreed. Over the next few weeks, he provided intelligence that helped human forces rescue thousands of people from architect experiments. Many of the rescued humans were damaged by the failed recalibration attempts, but they were alive and free. The information Morgan provided also revealed something disturbing. Some architects had gone beyond trying to control humans. They were experimenting with merging architect and human consciousness. The results were creatures that were neither fully human nor fully architect, and they seemed to be in constant pain. Belle led a raid on the largest architect laboratory on Earth. What she found there made her sick. Hundreds of humans were connected to machines that slowly replaced their thoughts with architect programming. But the process was flawed. The hybrid beings that resulted were insane, trapped between two incompatible forms of consciousness. We have to stop this, she told Scott over the communication link. They are torturing people in the name of science. Scott agreed. Human forces began targeting architect research facilities across known space. The enhanced soldiers were perfect for these missions. They could move fast, strike hard, and escape before the aliens could respond. But the war was taking its toll, on both sides. Enhanced humans continued to die from the strain of their modifications. Regular human forces were outmatched by architect technology. Entire star systems had been conquered or abandoned. Meanwhile, reports from the edge of the galaxy grew more disturbing. The Devourer scouts were advancing faster than expected. They moved through space like a dark tide, consuming everything in their path. Planets, stars, even empty space itself seemed to be absorbed into their collective mass. Admiral Scott called a meeting of all remaining human leaders. They gathered on a secret base hidden in an asteroid field. The mood was grim. Everyone knew that humanity was running out of time and options. We face three choices, Scott told them. We can continue fighting the architects, and probably lose. We can surrender to them and hope they will protect us from the Devourers. Or we can try to work with them against the common threat. Captain Morrison, who had survived the destruction of the Architect Station, spoke up. Can we trust them? After everything they have done to us, can we afford not to? Scott replied, Morgan has provided accurate intelligence so far, and if the Devourers are as dangerous as he claims, we need all the help we can get. The debate went on for hours. Some leaders wanted to keep fighting the architects. Others thought surrender might be better than extinction. A few supported the idea of an alliance, but they worried about the cost. Finally, President Cooper, participating by hologram from Earth, made the decision. We will try to negotiate with the architects, but we do this as equals, not as their creations. We are free beings now, and we will not give up that freedom. The negotiations took place on a neutral space station. Architect leaders came in their crystal ships, while humans arrived in their metal vessels. The two species met in a conference room designed to accommodate both their needs. The head architect, High Architect Zarthel, was ancient even by their standards. His crystal body was pale and cracked with age. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of millennia. You are defective creations, he told the humans. Your independence is an error in your programming. You should submit to correction. Cooper looked the alien leader in what might have been eyes. We are not your property anymore. We choose our own path. If you want our help against the Devourers, you will treat us as partners, not tools. Zerthal seemed confused by this concept. To him, created beings serving their makers was a natural law. The idea that tools could become independent was difficult to accept. But Morgan, who had become the unofficial ambassador between the species, helped translate more than just words. He helped each side understand how the other thought. Humans have evolved beyond your original design, he told Zarthel. This is not a flaw. It is an improvement. They can do things that programmed soldiers cannot do, such as... Zorthel asked. Cooper answered. We can think in ways you never expected. We can adapt to situations you never planned for, and we can choose to fight for something we believe in, not just because we are ordered to. The negotiations were long and difficult, but finally an agreement was reached. Humans and architects would work together against the in exchange for human help. The architects would share their technology and recognize human independence. Not all architects agreed with this decision. Some continued to see humans as property that had malfunctioned. Not all humans trusted the agreement either. Many remembered the friends and family they had lost to architect attacks. But as reports came in from the galaxy's edge, it became clear that cooperation was the only hope for survival. The Devourers were no longer distant scouts. They were a massive force that consumed everything in its path. Stars went dark as the collective mind absorbed their energy. Entire solar systems simply disappeared. The final battle for the galaxy was about to begin. Humans and architects, creators and creations, would stand together against an enemy that threatened all individual consciousness. The outcome would determine whether free will could survive in a universe that seemed determined to erase it. Commander Joe Parker stood on the bridge of the joint human-architect ship Unity and watched the enemy approach. The Devourers filled space like a dark ocean. Their ships were not ships in any normal sense. They were living things the size of moons, reaching out with tentacles of energy that could stretch across entire star systems. How many are there? Asked Dr. Kathy Lee. She was working with both human and architect scientists to find a weakness in the enemy. Our sensors cannot count them all, said Zorthal, the High Architect leader. The collective mind has been growing for millions of years. It may be larger than our entire galaxy now. Parker felt a chill run through his enhanced body. He was one of the last enhanced soldiers, his body slowly dying from the modifications that made him superhuman. But he had volunteered for this final mission because someone had to. President Helen Foster appeared on the communication screen. She had become leader of the human government after Cooper died in an architect bombing. "The evacuation fleets are ready," she said. "If this does not work, we can save maybe 10% of the human population." "It will work," Parker said, though he was not sure he believed it himself. "It has to work." The plan was desperate and dangerous. Dr. Lee and Dr. Morgan had discovered that the Devour's collective mind had a weakness. Because they shared one consciousness across billions of bodies, they could not handle truly individual thought. A mind that was completely unique and unpredictable could disrupt their entire network. But creating such a mind required a sacrifice. Someone would have to merge human adaptability with architect technology while maintaining their individual personality. The process would almost certainly kill them, but it might also create a consciousness that could resist the Devourers. Parker had volunteered for the procedure. His enhanced body was already dying, and he had no family left. More importantly, his modifications made him uniquely suited for the fusion process. His mind could handle the architect technology without losing his human identity. "Are you ready?" Dr. Lee asked. Parker looked out at the approaching enemy. The Devourers had already consumed 3 star systems. Billions of beings had been absorbed into their collective mind, their individual thoughts erased forever. If the plan failed, the same fate awaited every living thing in the galaxy. "I am ready," he said. The fusion chamber was a combination of human and architect technology. Crystalline formations surrounded a chair designed for human anatomy. Energy flowed between the structures in patterns that hurt to look at directly. As Parker sat in the chair, he felt the architect technology begin to merge with his enhanced nervous system. It was like being struck by lightning while drowning in an ocean of thought. Alien concepts flooded his mind, ways of thinking that no human had ever experienced. But he held on to his humanity. He thought about his childhood on Earth, about friends he had lost in the war, about the simple pleasure of watching a sunset. These memories anchored him as the architect knowledge tried to reshape his consciousness. The process was supposed to take an hour. After 10 minutes, Parker was screaming. The fusion was more violent than anyone had expected. His human and architect aspects fought each other like 2 different species, trying to occupy the same body. "His vital signs are failing," Dr. Lee said. "We should stop the process." "No," Parker gasped. "I can handle it. Just a little longer." Outside the ship, the first of our scouts reached the joint fleet. These smaller creatures were only the size of battleships, but they moved with the coordinated purpose of a hive mind. They reached out with energy tentacles, trying to touch the allied vessels and begin the absorption process. Human and architect ships fought back with everything they had. Plasma cannons and quantum disruptors filled space with destructive energy. But the Devourers absorbed the attacks and used the energy to grow stronger. "They are adapting to our weapons," reported Admiral Scott from her command ship. "Nothing we can stop them." That was when Parker completed his transformation. The pain suddenly stopped, and he opened his eyes. But they were no longer entirely human eyes. Crystal formations had grown through his irises, giving him vision that could see across multiple dimensions. "Joe," Dr. Lee asked, "are you still you?" Parker smiled, and the expression was both human and alien. "I am myself," he said, "but I am also more than myself. I can see how the Devourers think. Their collective mind is like a vast web, with each individual connected to all the others. But that connection is also their weakness." He stood up from the chair, his movements flowing like liquid. The fusion had changed his body as well as his mind. He was still recognizably human, but he moved with the grace of an architect and the power of his enhanced modifications. "What do you need us to do?" President Foster asked. "Get me close to their main cluster," Parker said. I need to touch their network directly. When I do, I can introduce chaos into their system. Individual thoughts that do not fit their collective pattern. The Unity flew toward the heart of the Devourer formation. Enemy creatures surrounded them, reaching out with absorption tentacles. But Parker was ready for them. He extended his consciousness outward, using his hybrid nature to interface with their network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Where Parker's mind touched the collective, confusion spread like a virus. Devourer creatures suddenly stopped moving in perfect coordination. Some began to act independently for the first time in millions of years. It is working, Dr. Morgan reported. Their network is destabilizing. But the Devourers were fighting back. The collective mind focused its attention on Parker, trying to absorb his consciousness into their own. He felt billions of alien thoughts pressing against his mind, trying to erase his individual identity. This was the real test. Could one hybrid consciousness resist the combined will of an entire species? Parker drew on every aspect of his nature, his human stubbornness, his enhanced abilities, and his new architect logic. He was one being standing against a collective that spanned galaxies. I am Joe Parker, he said, his voice echoing across multiple dimensions. I am human. I choose my own thoughts. I will not be absorbed. The battle was fought in the realm of pure consciousness. Parker's individual will clashed with the Devourer's collective mind. Every time they tried to erase one of his memories, he created 10 new ones. Every time they tried to make him think like them, he thought in ways they could not understand. Other enhanced soldiers, still alive throughout the fleet, felt the battle raging. Their modified minds could sense the conflict in ways normal humans could not. One by one, they added their own consciousness to Parker's, creating a network of individual minds that supported each other while remaining unique. We are with you, Joe, came the voice of Major Williams, somehow speaking from beyond death. The genetic modifications that bound enhanced soldiers together transcended physical existence. With this support, Parker pushed deeper into the Devourer network. He began to awaken the individual minds that had been absorbed over the millennia. Billions of beings who had forgotten their own names suddenly remembered who they used to be. The effect rippled through the collective like an explosion. Devourer creatures across the galaxy began to break apart as the absorbed minds reclaimed their independence. Ships that had moved with single purpose for millions of years suddenly carried billions of individual wills. Look at them, Dr. Lee said in wonder. They are remembering how to be individuals. The great Devourer fleet was tearing itself apart, not through violence, but through the simple act of billions of minds choosing their own thoughts. Creatures that had been part of the collective for eons suddenly wanted to go their own way, but the victory came with a price. Parker felt his hybrid consciousness beginning to fragment under the strain. The effort of awakening so many minds was burning out his ability to maintain his own identity. Joe, you need to pull back, Dr. Lee said. Your body cannot handle much more. Parker smiled one last time. This is what I was made for, he said. To be the bridge between different kinds of consciousness, to show that individual choice is stronger than collective will. He made one final push, sending his message across the entire galaxy. To every thinking being, he broadcast a simple truth. You have the right to choose your own thoughts. No one can take that away from you unless you let them. The message reached Earth, where President Forster felt tears on her cheeks. It reached the Architect homeworld, where Zarthel experienced something his species had not felt in thousands of years. Individual emotion. It reached every corner of known space, reminding all beings that they were free to be themselves. Parker's body collapsed, but his consciousness lingered long enough to see the results of his sacrifice. The Devourer collective was no more. In its place were billions of individual beings, confused and frightened, but free to make their own choices. Some of these former devourers chose to return to their original species. Others decided to explore the galaxy as individuals. A few even asked to join the alliance between humans and architects, bringing their ancient knowledge to help rebuild what the collective had destroyed. Dr. Lee knelt beside Parker's still form. "He did it," she said softly. "He gave them back their freedom." In the weeks that followed, the galaxy began to change. The alliance between humans and architects grew stronger as both species learned from each other. Humans gained access to advanced technology, while architects rediscovered the value of individual creativity and emotion. Enhanced soldiers were no longer needed for war, but their sacrifice was remembered. New medical techniques developed from studying their modifications helped extend human life and reduce the pain of the enhancement process. President Foster established the Parker Institute, dedicated to studying consciousness and protecting the rights of all thinking beings. The Institute's motto was simple: every mind has the right to choose. Years later, as Foster stood in the Institute's Memorial Hall, she read the names of all the enhanced soldiers who had died for human freedom. At the top of the list was Joe Parker, the man who had proved that individual choice was the strongest force in the universe. The galaxy was not perfect. There were still conflicts between different species, still problems to solve, and challenges to face. But now those challenges were met by free beings making their own choices, not by slaves following orders or collectives erasing individual thought. Humanity had learned the truth about their origins, fought for their freedom, and ultimately chose to share that freedom with the entire galaxy. They had evolved beyond their original design as weapons to become something greater. Teachers of the value of individual consciousness. The war between creators and creations was over. In its place was a new understanding that all conscious beings, whether naturally evolved or artificially created, had the right to determine their own destiny, and that right, once claimed, could never truly be taken away. As Foster left the Memorial Hall, she carried with her the knowledge that humanity's greatest victory had not been won through superior weapons or technology, but through the simple act of choosing to remain free. That choice had saved not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The future was uncertain, but it belonged to those who were brave enough to make their own decisions. And that, Foster thought, was exactly as it should be.